Welcome back, troops. Let's tab 59. Wrong hand. Let me switch hands. So currently here in the UK, there's a public inquiry running into war crimes again. Now, it's been going on for some time, but some new stuff has come to light and I wanted to chat about it. So the inquiry is to find out if in fact there is, or what happened in Afghanistan with our UK special forces, illegal killings, etc. That's what the inquiry is looking at. Now, they're not specific on which special forces units it is, but I think we can safely say they're looking at the Special Air Service and also the Royal Navy's sister special forces unit, the Special Boat Service, the SBS. So I think that's who they're looking at, although that's not stated, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So how did this inquiry come about? What's going on? What are the alleged crimes? Let's have a look at all that. So first of all, in 2022, February, I believe, the BBC, the Panorama documentary was aired, where somebody obviously spoke to researchers or whatever at the BBC, and they've made this documentary, Panorama, about these allegations against our SF of illegal killings of detainees, unarmed civilians, and even women and children. And I'll get into those in a bit more detail. So that came out in 2022. Yeah. A year later, March 2023, is when the inquiry was launched. So obviously it's on the back of that BBC documentary. That came out, the government obviously saw it and thought, we've got to do something about this. There's something in it. They must have looked into it internally and decided a public inquiry was needed. So that's when it started, and it's still ongoing now. But why I'm talking about it now is because the evidence is starting to appear from the inquiry online. There's, in fact, video footage from the inquiry itself, from inside the court, if you like, and there's manuscripts of the statements and evidence given, heavily redacted, of course, for obvious reasons, operational security, etc. But it's there in the public domain, although heavily redacted. And some of the accusations, like I say, are coming out. So how did all that start? How did it all... We know it come off the back of the BBC Panorama documentary, but somebody must have opened the floodgates. A whistleblower. Well, it was. The guy's obviously redacted his name. He's a Special Forces operator, a former Special Forces operator. I don't know if he's still serving or not. But he was the Assistant Chief of Staff Operations for the Director of Special Forces. So I'm not sure of what his rank would have been. It says he was a senior officer, but that's what the civvies call him. I don't know. Now, the Director of Special Forces, at this time, it was 2011. 2011, when this ACOS guy, who was serving, went to the then Director of Special Forces and said to him, now the Director of Special Forces holds the rank of Major General, so he's a senior guy. Went to him and said, look, I'm looking at these reports coming out of Afghan. Something's not right. I think something's going on out there. I think the lads, there's something dodgy going on with these reports. I'll go into depth a little bit of what he actually said. Anyway, Director of Special Forces basically cuffed it off, didn't do anything. That's what this guy's saying. In 2012, a year later, the same Assistant Chief of Staff had a new Director of Special Forces. They changed over, they swapped over. They do every 3 or 4 years or whatever. So a new Director of Special Forces comes in, new Major General comes in, and this ACOS guy takes the same stuff that he heard about to him as he had the predecessor. Again, it was sort of cuffed off. I think the 2012 Director of Special Forces, the one that's in post then, I think he... I've gone the wrong way here. Can't get a dead end. The 2012 guy cuffed it off again, but what he did was done like an internal inquiry. I suppose just to appease the ACOS. I'm guessing at some of this. Don't hold me to it. So nothing happened. And that was it. It was pretty much put to bed until this documentary come out. And then on the back of that, decided to have the public inquiry. So what are the allegations? Well, they're alleging that UK Special Forces soldiers they would raid a compound and search it. Well, they'd raid it first of all, grab the head of the family out of the compound, take him outside, search him and all that, and say to him, right, we're taking you back in to help us with the search on the compound. They would take him back in and then kill him, saying that he'd gone for a gun, and then planted a weapon on him. One of the concerns was that the ratio of dead Taliban to the number of weapons recovered didn't match, didn't sound right. So, for instance, there was 9 dead Taliban killed in action, allegedly, and only 3 weapons recovered. And often these weapons, not always, but often these were short weapons. They were pistols or a grenade. So that didn't tally in some people's minds. Plus the position they'd been shot at, ballistic people looked at it and said they were laying down when they were shot. So obviously they were already on the floor or laying in a bed when they were shot. So that's the sort of allegations that were made. Now, initially on these raids that Special Forces did, a lot of them were done at night time. They would go in by helicopter with support from the Afghan National Army, Special Forces or Afghan National Commandos. Most of these have been trained by our own Special Forces. So they're all going by helicopter. They'd come down. The Afghan National Army guys would then put an outer cordon around the whole area to stop anyone from outside of that compound area coming in to disrupt the operation. So they'd done the outer cordon. The Special Forces themselves would have an inner cordon, and they would have a team that were actually going to make entry into the compound. Now, initially when they started these operations, as they were coming in on the helicopters, they were coming under sustained fire from the Taliban, obviously. But you've got to remember that the Special Forces, when they come in these operations, with the Afghan National Army, outnumbered and outgunned the Taliban. Their tactics obviously were far superior, and they had air assets, gunships, etc. up in the air, so they were completely outgunned. And the Taliban quickly clicked onto that and thought, we're just getting wiped out here. So what they did was they put up no resistance, or very little resistance, as the operations like this went on. They realised what the British were doing. So as soon as the helicopters come in, the Taliban would surrender. They'd come out, put their hands up, and they would get detained. Now, they would get bagged and tagged, and any weapons found taken as evidence, bagged, and then they would collapse the operation and go back. The Afghans that had captured, then the Taliban, suspected Taliban, would be interrogated, etc., and then put through the fledgling Afghan judicial system. Now, whether there was corruption going on there in this system, the law system that the Afghans had, the fledgling system, as I say, we don't know. But here's the thing. Out of all that were captured, only 1% of these people were actually convicted. They could only be held for 96 hours, and after that 96 hours didn't have enough evidence, or the Afghans didn't believe they'd enough evidence to charge them, they were released. So the Taliban then quickly said, well, that's how we do it. As soon as we hear helicopters coming, don't fire at them, throw your weapons down, run out with your hands up. They'll hold us for 96 hours in custody, and down to a pinch, we're going to be released after 96 hours and we're back in the game. So that must have been very frustrating to the Special Forces guys. Now, this is where it comes in. Now, this is my take on it, right? And this is not fact. What I'm about to tell you now is not fact. It's what I think is one possible scenario. If there was illegal killings. If. Imagine how frustrated these Special Forces guys were, because these Special Forces guys were taking out targeted leaders, etc., of the Taliban. The ones that they were trying to cut the head off the snake, because these Taliban were killing, obviously, civilians, Afghan police, Afghan National Army, and the Green Coalition Army. The lads out there, these were bomb makers, IED makers, killing our lads in the Green Army and coalition forces, other coalition nations. So the SS were frustrated because they knew who these players were. They knew, but the system, the law system in Afghanistan was letting them down, and they were getting rotated back into the system. So my belief is possibly what could have happened is, so frustrated, they said, right, let's just go in there and do them. We know they're guilty. Let's go in there and kill them. Become a kill operation. I don't know. But I could see how frustrating that would be, not getting results. Now, what the alleged stuff behind that is, I'm giving that scenario. What the, well, it's not prosecutors, are the people that are putting these alleged crimes up, what they're saying is that when any new member of the Special Forces joins the unit and deployed to Afghanistan back then, that they needed to blood them. In other words, they wanted that new guy to get his first kill. They had to blood the new guy. And that's how they did it. Grabbed him, right, he's definitely guilty, shoot him. Get in there and just shoot him. Don't matter if he puts his hand up, don't matter if he's unarmed, just shoot him, we've got to blood you. That's what they're saying. Now, they're also saying that, getting back to the ratio of weapons found on an operation to the amount of Taliban dead. I gave you a figure of 9 Taliban were dead, and there was only 3 weapons with them, or, very low numbers of weapons. What they're saying is that when they collect weapons in from an operation, and these guys are held for 96 hours and then released with no charge, the weapons then are no longer evidence. They just become weapons that are going to be destroyed or whatever, taken out of the system. Those weapons then, the SF guys are saying, can we have those weapons as trophies, pistols, AKs, etc. We want them as trophies. They were holding those weapons, and then when they were going on their next operation, they were taking those weapons with them with a specific intent that once they'd killed some detainees or people had captured on the ground, they could then place those weapons with the bodies to justify the killing of them. He went for that pistol. He went for that AK-47. This is stuff that's been alleged to the SAS or the Special Forces that are under inquiry at the moment. That's what's being said. Now, this isn't new to us over here. Northern Ireland, guys being dragged through the courts after inquiries, etc., for different events that happened back then, 50 odd years ago or more. And I myself was involved in the Al-Swedi inquiry in Iraq. That our incident happened in 2004 on our tour in Iraq, and 10 years after it, 2014, we're hauled up in for a public inquiry after a BBC, yeah, I know, Panorama, yeah, I know, documentary was put out. That documentary was put out, that sparked the inquiry that became known as the Al-Swedi inquiry. 10 years after the event, and we were dragged through a public inquiry. Now, that public inquiry in 2014 that I went through, we didn't get closure, we didn't get the exact outcome until after I'd left the army, and it must have been around, I think it was about 2018, 2019. So like 5 years after the inquiry had finished, before the actual results come out. And of course, we were all exonerated. It was a load of rubbish. Phil Shiner and his crew stitched us all up, or tried to stitch us up. So what I'm saying is, the British forces, this is not new to us. Northern Ireland, the Iraq inquiries, and of course now it's Afghanistan, but now it is specifically on Special Forces operators. There's a bit of a theme here, isn't there, with the BBC and Panorama doing this. Seems to spark it now. As I say, I don't know what happened. I wasn't involved in Afghanistan. I didn't go to Afghanistan. I've never been involved with Special Forces, so I don't know. Did something happen? Did those SF lads get frustrated at the judicial system out there and thought, we're just putting these back into the system, we've got to get them out, we've got to take them out? Was that the case? Was it a case of, right, let's blood the new guys? Was it a case of SF subunit rotating through Afghanistan, wanting to come back with a higher kill ratio than the previous unit? Was it a case of that? Let's see who can kill the most. I don't think so, because although, as I say, I've got no real experience of special forces, I do know from chatting to some how highly trained, how disciplined these SF operators are. They are not, I think the public, the civilians, have got this idea that some sort of Rambo characters, Arnold Schwarzenegger characters, just go into guns blazing, cutting people's heads off. They're not like that. These guys are like a surgical tool. They're like a scalpel. They're not an axe. They're a scalpel. And they go in and they're precise and they're clinical. They always have been, and I believe they always will be. I don't believe they're being portrayed as mad, sort of raving, bloodthirsty killers that just wanted to kill people for whatever reason, bravado or status or whatever. I don't believe that's true, not for one moment. But I think that's how they're trying to be painted at the moment. Now, obviously, there's got to be some truth in what's happened because of the amount of allegations against them, the amount of evidence that this guy, the ACOS, the Assistant Chief of Staff Operations, has given to the Director of Special Forces and now given to the inquiry. His cipher is November 1466, if you want to look it up. He's the guy, November 1466. That's his cipher to protect his identity. He's the one that's brought or giving all these statements, of witness statements, if you like, to the inquiry. He's the one doing it. But it's going to be quite interesting to see how this all pans out. It's going to be hugely frustrating for the Special Forces operators that are under these allegations. I know that because I was under allegations as well when I went through my inquiry. So I know what's hanging over the head. Now, an inquiry, a public inquiry, is not a court. It's no one has been charged criminally. We weren't. We went up for this inquiry for war crimes, all of us, loads of us, and we were all under the threat of that. But the outcome of this current inquiry that should determine whether there's enough evidence to prosecute individual SF operators. And that's the key bit we've got to get to. When that's going to happen, I don't know. Obviously, at the end of the inquiry, they'll finish the inquiry, they'll sit down and study everything, and then a paper will be written with recommendations, and then I suppose it's down for the Criminal Prosecution Service to decide whether there's enough evidence there to prosecute any soldiers. Now, one thing that has come out of this, it's under British military law, if any commander at any level of command gets whiff of any wrongdoing, like any war crimes against the Geneva Convention, for instance, then he has to report that to the Royal Military Police. And then the SIB, the Special Investigation Branch, will investigate it. So on that alone, this ACOS guy, the Assistant Chief of Staff Operations, he took that to Director of Special Forces, his concerns, with, I suppose, some documented evidence. So technically, I'm assuming, that the Director of Special Forces is the commander. It's come up the chain of command to him. He, once he looked at it, rather than hush it up on an internal inquiry, maybe he should have taken it at that stage to the RMP. I'm not quite sure whether he should have done that or not, but there you have it. So that was a little chat today about this current inquiry. I'm going to have to keep my eye on it. I'm sure some of you out there listening to this will do. My take on it is it's hyped up like ours was, like Northern Ireland was. Hyped up allegations against British forces, especially for Special Air Service or Special Forces. People seem to want them all the time, always seem to have a target on their head. My take on it is it's hyped up. And that's what I'm hoping the outcome will be. And I hope that the operators involved will be able to live through this, because it done my Sweding when I was going through it, I'll tell you, and for years afterwards. So that's the end of the talk. If you're new to my channel, you haven't subscribed, please consider it. I'm not saying do it, I'm saying consider it. So from sunny Lincolnshire, until next time, troops, and it won't be long, remember, stay safe and let's tap.